whether scenes around her neighborhood, friends, fragments of nature, or views of the Meskinekong River. Doris is going to thrill us with a nocturnal scene today. These type of paintings are always so dramatic and intriguing. It's going to be wonderful to get a glimpse into this effect. So during this demonstration, we will hope that everybody stays muted. You may ask questions through the chat, and I'm going to keep watching that. And then periodically, when there's a break or breather, I'm going to ask Doris the questions, and she will answer them. Also, at the end of the demonstration, you will be allowed to unmute yourselves and ask her a few more questions directly. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Doris now. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm here. The other day, Judy asked if I had, how often I do nocturnal scenes, and I said, oh, I just started doing them. In teaching, I've been teaching the Meskinekong watercolor group for 11 years now, and so I like to take suggestions from my students, and then I research what they ask and then teach it. So a few months ago, someone said, "Oh, let's do night scenes." So I said, "Oh, sure, we could do night scenes." So then I went on YouTube and read about it, consulted my watercolor books, and so we spent about a month doing nocturnes or night scenes. And then last night I realized that I always have my best ideas just when I'm waking up in the middle of the night, that as an illustrator, I did a number of night scenes in my books. So I thought before we get started, I'll just show you a couple of night scenes that I've done in the course of my illustrating children's books. So this is one. I'm going to spotlight my overhead now, and let me just find myself. I have to find where is my phone? Right at the end, of course. So I'm going to. Okay, so now I am spotlit. Thank you. And here's one of my books for Sleeping Bear Press. I use watercolor on hot press paper, and then I follow up with some colored pencil at the end. And this is my dog, Bruce Wayne, and he appears twice here. And so this was a book of poems, alphabetical, of course. And so for the letter T, T is for tide. And so here we have some horseshoe crabs, who are ancient. And so this gave me a chance to do a night scene at the ocean. And so I was very pleased with that. And so in looking at a night scene, I always have to remind myself that the sky is not the darkest thing. The sky is actually can be very light. And so that's one. And then recently, my latest book is, it's called Aim for the Skies, about two aviators in the 1960s, two women who flew around the world, inspired by Amelia Earhart. And here they are flying in some heavy weather, and I used watercolor on gessoed illustration board. So this is a little like Yupo, but there's a little more texture to it, and it's easier to manage. So here's a stormy night scene using that technique. And this was great because I could spatter and then put in the darker ocean. And so actually, this particular painting sold. It's in the children's book gallery in Northampton, Massachusetts, the R. Michelson Gallery. And anyway, so that one sold. That was nice. But this is the one I'm most proud of. This book's about the Oregon Trail, a book for Black-Eyed Susan. And the opening scene in this book is our main character, Cora, is running towards her parents' covered wagon. Her mother's just given birth and her aunt is holding the baby. And so the mother died in childbirth. This is probably why the book really didn't sell very well, because kids don't mind death like that, but a lot of parents would have a problem with the first page having the mother die. But this book is about separation, and these people left their farms and headed west, and people died. They separated. They went their different ways. So I painted this using glazes, and so I started with aureole and yellow and did the land and the wagon. Then I did used Rose Madder Genuine and did another pass with that. And then I used cobalt blue. And so for the landforms and the sky, I used a combination of alizarin crimson and Windsor green, which really give you a neutral, and they kind of battle each other as you use them. And then I added ultramarine to the sky to kind of settle down that kind of animosity between the alizarin crimson and Windsor green. I like to assign personality to pigments. But when I first painted it, I was really unhappy with how it looked. And my husband said, you just have to keep making the sky darker. So I just did glaze after glaze into the sky. And as I did each pass, it was as if the wattage was being turned up inside the wagon. So that was a really effective way to use glazes. And then I finished up with colored pencil. So my career has really changed quite a bit. The children's markets changed. And I started teaching. And then, as I said, 11 years ago, I started teaching the Musconetcong Watercolor Group. And we meet here in my home, which is a grist mill on the Musconetcong River. And that has really inspired me and really made me expand my technique, and yet I can bring to my watercolor my drawing skills that I've honed over the years as an illustrator. So our first night scene that I taught was just we were doing autumn scenes. And so for the first night scene, very rudimentary, we took the same scene we were using for the autumn scene, which was, it was actually a barn, a mountain, some trees, the water. And I just did a kind of a neutral ultramarine blue, and then used neutral tint for the darks. And so with just those two colors, you know, it says it's nighttime, but it's not very exciting. So this is, this was in the way when I was doing a little snow scene, so it got very spattered. So this was actually the first one I did. So you get the idea. So this was nice, but it's really not that dynamic. So so it was after that we did this scene that I'm going to demo today. This is a scene that a friend of mine took in her neighborhood in Winchester, Massachusetts. Of there was a movie being filmed. I forget what the title of it is now, but they came in and they put up these artificial street lights, and they created all this illumination on the street. And so so I thought, oh, this would be good. I'll have to tuck this one away. So that's what we did. I reduced the size of it. And so this was my color sketch, because I worked small. And so here's the color sketch. And so in working this way, I am going to lay down my warm colors, my lightest warm colors, and then work up to burnt sienna. And then I switch to cool colors. And so this will be this is what I'm going to attempt. I made the composition bigger because I wanted to show you how I could use the ultramarine for a night sky, like I did in the piece that was used for the promo. And if I can finish this up early enough, I have a 16-minute time-lapse video of that painting. So we'll see how we do here. All right, so here's my drawing. And here the important thing with a drawing like this is where's my vanishing point, because the linear perspective plays a role here. And so just by putting a straight edge along the obvious lines of perspective, I could figure out where my vanishing point is. So my vanishing point is right there. And so that helped me then do my drawing and get everything squared away. So the thing that involved the most detail was this house. And I'll come in a little bit so you can see my drawing a little bit better. Also, I wanted to make sure I didn't draw circles around the streetlights because I want them to really glow. So I just have to remember where they are as I paint. So I'm going to be starting with cad yellow. I'm using cad yellow, cad orange, and burnt sienna to start off with. So I'm going to get that going. So as I explained in that covered wagon scene, I was using Aureolin and rose madder genuine and cobalt. So all three of those are not, they're very transparent, and they really are conducive to, they're really great for layering. As long as you dry the paper in between, you're good. So unlike that, I'm using these heavy semi-opaque colors for this painting because I want some punchy, warm colors. I don't want to be wimpy here. And I'm just going to get out some paper to check my colors. So I'm just going to beef that up and get my burnt sienna ready.
So while you're mixing, I'm going to ask a question about your little porcelain dishes. So,
oh, yes.
So what are they exactly? They're pretty interesting.
Well, what's nice about them is they stack like this. Mm-hmm. So you could call them a stacked palette. I associate them with Asia. I think these are Chinese. And someone asked me about it on Facebook, and I found a link. I think they're Richardson, I think that's how you say it, makes these. I've had them for a long time, so they're probably on Dick Blick. So a lot of people will have their paint right in here, their particular pigment, and then they'll stack it up and save it. I don't like to save colors like that because I end up doing this. Like this is alizarin crimson and Windsor green, and it's like too much paint to throw away, and yet I'm not using it. And so I have these two out of commission. And but another thing that works well are these dishes. Oh, here we go. These were used for coleslaw and potato salad at a restaurant, and somebody gave me those. So the porcelain and works very well. And I also use a butcher tray. I like to use the butcher tray. But when you're working at an angle like I am right now, then the dishes really work out well.
Cool, thank you. And don't forget, you can write in the chat questions for me and I will periodically ask Doris.
And I welcome questions because I know what I'm forgetting to tell you. So I'm going to do a little wetting up here, but I'm not going to wet the whole page. Just going to randomly wet before I go in with the yellow. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting around the light sources. So that's the main thing is don't intrude on the white areas. So I have to keep the paper dry there. And this is a white house, but I'm thinking more in terms of warm. It's a warm house. So let's see, here we go. And so I can be nice and fairly loose here. And there are going to be some leaves coming down in front of the house. So wherever it's going to be dark, I don't have to worry about it because I can go right over it with my dark color. And but it's just the white areas I have to be very careful about. So, and I'm going to have, I always have a damp brush handy for softening hard edges. So I'm just going to come down here. And I was really inspired by a young painter. She's not even 30 yet, and her name's Martha Workajowski, and she works in oil. And I'm not quite sure where she lives, but it might be Doylestown. I know she has a gallery. She's in a gallery in Doylestown. Anyway, I went to a show of her oil paintings locally, and she did these night scenes that were just amazing because she would use these primary and secondary colors for parts of the painting that were catching the light. And it was just so remarkable. They worked so well on an abstract level, but they were very, they had a lot of mood and atmosphere. No people, but these scenes, and she had gone to RISD, so she had a lot of scenes of Providence that I could kind of respond to. And so I kind of took a page out of her book in approaching the areas in light. And later I'll show you the photograph I worked from for the Stone House Rainy Night, where you can see it. It's a very drab photo. And so the challenge is to find the color. And so.
Doris, what kind of paper are you using?
This is Fabriano bright white. I try to use bright white. I had stopped using Fabriano because I got a bum package, and later my husband read that they had changed their machines or something, and so I was off Fabriano for a while. But then I had a bum piece of Arches, so then I tried Saunders which is nice, but I didn't find any bright white with Saunders paper. So, so then I thought, well, I'll go back to Fabriano, and I'm reminded of why I love Fabriano. And I guess they got their act together with their new machines. So
It's
back in
140
business.
pounds.
Yeah, 140 pound cold press.
Okay. Thank you.
And while you're on the topic of paper, can
Yeah.
you briefly describe how you stretch your paper in the beginning?
I'll do my drawing and then stretch my paper. I have this paper page isn't very large, it's a quarter sheet, but I have a little tank, a shallow plastic tank that can hold a full sheet of paper. And so I soak it in that, but I don't soak it long. I soak it for not even a minute. I just get the paper thoroughly wet. And so then I put it on a piece of plywood. I have this birch plywood that I have lots of this, because when I would do my illustration work, I had to have, the paper had to be flat. I couldn't have any warping at all. So now I don't worry about it so much. I generally just clip it to a piece of Formica. But now just, my mind is here for a minute. But this is a piece of my, this is what this looks like after I take the page out, the paper out. When I'm done with a painting, I cut along this. So you can kind of see how I put it together. I put saran wrap down first to cover up any bits of glue that are left from a previous one. I take my soaked paper, my briefly soaked paper, and I lay it on top of the board that has the saran wrap on it. Then I have, when I let it rest so it can continue to expand, then I wipe the edges with paper toweling. And then I use this old-fashioned craft paper postage tape. And this is 1.5 inches wide. So I have a roll that's 3 inches wide, and I just roughly measure it, and then I cut it the long way. And I run it through water, through a tub of water, using my fingers as a very light squeegee. And then I should do a demo on that sometime. And then I lay it down and use my burnisher to get it really flat. Now, it doesn't always stay flat. Sometimes I could do it and not use staples at all, but I wanted to be on the safe side today and not have and the paper lift off. So I love working like this. I show this to my students and they say, oh God, that's too much trouble. And they don't, they'd just rather use a block, which is fine. But when I use a block, I don't always finish my work. And then I end up with all these blocks that are out of commission because they have unfinished paintings on them. So, okay, so now I'm going to, but when you cut it off, you want to make sure you cut right where the tape meets the, it's the edge of the tape. I showed this to someone and they cut it here. So they ended up with the craft paper around it. And of course, it's not acid free. And so you don't want that. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of paint a halo of yellow around my street lights. And so this is where I kind of eyeball my linear perspective. Hopefully it'll all come out just fine. So and there's going to be more light here. There's another light here. There's a light here. So I'm going to go around this. And then I have another light over here. Light here. Here. And here. But that will help me. That'll help remind me where these bits of light are that I don't want to forget. And then there's a big street light over the intersection. And so I'll just a little there. And I'm going to reflections in the puddles along the side of the road. So the beginning of the painting is fun because I can just kind of splash the paint around. And yep, so see, I went over one of my bits of light. So this, I'll be layering, but like I said, this is not your namby-pamby kind of color. Okay. And now I'm going to proceed to my orange. Now, ordinarily, I would dry it in between, but I'm not going to. We're just going to go in and go for it. All right, so I'm looking at my picture and I want the foreground to be warm. So right in here, there's a light. I want to remember that. So I don't want the cadmiums to be too heavy. But this will mix with the ultramarine blue, which I'll use next. And then that'll give me a rather neutral color. So here again, I'm going to put a little halo my lights.
Doris, when you get a breaking point, can you show us the reference photo or have it in the corner? of the-
Sure. I'll just show it to you right now.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take a screenshot.
Oh, I see the light. Thank you. Have you painted this scene before? Is this the first time you're winging it with us?
Oh, I did this sketch,
The
which is
what-
not on it's on Hanamula paper, which is like Canson. So in this case, I like the effect, you know, because on the cheaper paper, it either dries too fast or it puddles. And if you just embrace that, you can have a really nice active painting. So this is slightly larger. And of course, it's better paper.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see the difference.
Thank you.
So when I switch to the burnt sienna, I'll be going over a lot of this tree again. So the yellow and the orange will just kind of peek out, and that'll look good. So again, I want to get some color on the house. And you know, to do these fussy little bits, a lot of people would switch to a smaller brush. And but if it's a brush that comes to a good point, better to use a bigger brush. Then you can minimize the number of strokes you add to your painting. Okay, and I have another light here. Little flag.
Do you ever use masking fluid?
Rarely. I'd rather do negative painting. I don't like what happens to the paper when you lift it. And I've had situations before. Remember, I said I don't always finish my paintings. I've had paintings sitting around too long, and then I try to remove the masking fluid, and it wasn't pretty.
Hmm.
But I can see where it really makes a lot of sense to use it. So I use it so rarely that when I try to use it, it's all dried up and I have to buy more. So that's another reason why I don't use it. So
Yep. What's your general brand of watercolors that you use?
I used to use just Winsor and Newton, but lately I've been using Holbein, and I'm really happy with it. So I like what happens in my palette. Things don't get crumbly,
Mhm.
and I like that.
Thank you.
But I also use Sennelier, or I've started using a few Daniel Smith colors that I've heard artists recommend. Any excuse to buy art supplies. That's
Right?
what I say. And then after Marilyn Rose's demo, she was talking about low Cornell brushes, and I have a couple of low Cornell synthetic brushes that I use. And I thought, I should really get a new one. And I couldn't find them, which is what she was complaining about. And so I looked into Escoda brushes, which are a synthetic made in Barcelona. I've heard, well, Thomas Schaller had recommended Escoda brushes. And so they make really nice synthetic brushes also. In fact, I could be using that brush right now. Instead, this is my silver black velvet, and I have silver black velvets in every shape and size because they're natural squirrel brushes with just a little synthetic to give it a little spring. And so it holds a lot of water, a lot of paint. And okay. So almost done with the orange. Okay, so this is my new Escoda brush, and it's number 12. And it actually holds more water than most synthetics. And so I'm happy with this. Okay, so now I'm going to proceed with burnt sienna. So here again, here's an area I missed. One of the YouTubes I watched when I was trying to prepare to teach this was Gary Tucker did a demo on YouTube of it was a street scene in Paris at night. And that was very helpful as well. Yeah, this brush has a lot of nice spring to it. So this part of the tree is something that is not in my sketch, but like I said, I wanted to have you see a ultramarine blue sky here. So I'm just gonna get this laid in. I often do my best paintings for when I do demos, or at least the paintings that start with demos, because I work faster, and so I'm a little looser, and so I'm always aspiring to paint more like Marilyn Rose or Rita Feeney. I really love how loose their work is, and so very often, if I'm painting just on my own or finishing up a painting I started in class, I'll just start getting all picky, and then it doesn't look as fresh. So even though my illustrations are very precise, and with the last book I did about the aviators, I was working looser, but not much. So I keep trying. I'm aspiring to be very loose. I think as long as I have a part of my painting that is precise, then I have to give myself a license to loosen up on the rest of it. One of the things I liked about this painting as an exercise was using a limited palette. So I may get some mineral violet out later at the end, but I keep doing that. Okay. Yeah, that's a well-behaved brush.
Yeah. It's already coming together nicely.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
I should look at it.
Yep, well, we like it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. And then I'm going to close this in here. And then we're going to switch to blue, to ultramarine blue. So here I have to do a little slurping. Softening. So there's a light. It's light there. And some of this in here. All right. All right, so now I'm going to put my yellow away. Now for ultramarine. And I'm going to start out with it dilute. Now I'm tempted to, I'm wondering if I should do this wet and wet. Maybe I'll just going to spritz it up here at the top a little bit, just so it's more receptive to the color. And so here it can come down over the tree. See, this is where I should be using a bigger brush, but I'm planning something here. As I come down, I'm going to leave this. I can come back to this part. Always have to strategize where you're going to stop your wash.
Now, if you weren't demonstrating, would you have dried that burnt sienna layer before you put the blue on?
Oh, I probably would have stopped and had lunch, and then it would have dried.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I might have. I don't think so, though. I might have.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to see the colors blend together while they're still.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. Little
Mhm.
flows. If you look in the picture, a lot of soft edges.
Right.
It's only where there's light that you get the hard edge. And I'm just trying to get my bearings because too much water. Just so if I add stronger color up here, I do it right at the top and let it flow down.
Yeah, that's so much fun.
Yeah. So now I'm going to keep diluting it as this is my, this is how I tilt my
It's a wooden block.
it's a wooden block. My husband invented this. It comes in two sizes, two heights. So that's the short height, and then that's the tall height. So I always have to give him credit for inventing the wooden block. Okay, so I want to be careful here. I want to be a little more dilute. And so I'm coming down into the area where there's street light. And it's right under this branch. And then over here, I want to slurp this up and just, I'm going to, with clean water, I'm just going to go around this light. So there's a real halo around that street light. And I can always modify it later. Okay, so my little yellow halos are reminding me where the light is. And I'd like it a little bluer. So this is a little tricky spot where I'm going to encounter some figures that are in silhouette. I'm going to get another. This is my low Cornell. Just this soft halo around the lights. And I'm coming down to some figures that are in silhouette, and I've got other lights here. So tricky bit coming up. It's got dry already. So it's a little foggy, which is nice. All right, so if you look right here, there are tiny figures in silhouette. So this is where a good point on your brush is handy. It was a pole. So we really just see the bottom of these figures. So I'm really just painting their legs. So here I go. So I'm not thinking that they're people, they're just shapes. They kind of disappear in the glare. This one has a backpack. Okay, and then they're casting shadows. I can come down. Okay. And there are some headlights. Now switching to a bigger brush. And so I can cover more territory quickly. And I'll be darkening this later.
Looks great. Love the neutral that's created when you're going over the burnt sienna.
Exactly.
Yeah, looks lovely.
Thank you. Okay, so now I can think about what's going on up here after doing that tricky bit. So the way these lights are illuminating the other side of the tree and the underside of the leaves. So that's really nice. So these darks are really the trees that are closest. So I'm going to go back with a stronger blue up in the sky. And I really want the tree to just kind of disappear off the top of the page. Because I felt the painting worked just as a, you know, very narrow horizontal. Should make that blue. So whatever's white up here, I'm going to make blue because it's sky. I want some of the orange to stay there. So I don't want to lose all my warm lights. So as I proceed, I'm going to make my distant darks cool, or keep them cool, and then my foreground darks I'm going to make keep them warm, and that's where I'll introduce a little one of my pinks in with my ultramarine, or I might switch to use a little mineral violet.
That's a great color. I love that color.
Yeah, that's one of my faves. That along with I have to thank Joan Capaldo for introducing me to mineral violet. But quinacridone gold is my other favorite. Oops, see, we're talking about it. I just stuck my brush into the mineral violet.
Meant to be.
Okay, time to get out the violet. Okay, so we're almost ready for it. See, I know there's a sidewalk here, so I don't want to get hung up with knowing that. There's a tiny bit of green in this picture. I'll save that for later. Okay, it's a little more blue. And now I'll switch back to my favorite brush and do more detail where I want the lights to stand out. door. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to my ultramarine and just do a little suggestion of grass down here, because that's too dark. No, I think it should be a more vivid green. So I'll save that for later when this dries. And I have some Slurpee bits here. So there's puddles along the side of the road. Make this more interesting. All right. Now I'm just going to look at how it looks on the screen. Okay. I think it's time for mineral violet. The color always looks terrible on Zoom, but anyway.
It's looking good.
Oh, good, good.
Yep. So with your mineral violet, you thank Joan Capaldo for introducing you. So
Yes.
Joan Capaldo writes that she has to thank Lena Schiffman for introducing her to mineral violet.
Oh, isn't it something?
So we're all very generous people sharing
We
each
are.
other's
Yeah.
things that we find and learn.
Well, there's nothing like a good tip when it comes to watercolor. It's, I don't have a lot of use for art theory, but a good tip is very welcome. Okay, I think I need some clean water here. I say that about art theory when I'm using it all the time, but if I'm going to take a workshop or watch a demo, I'm listening for the good tips.
Mm.
All right, so now I'm looking at my sketch to see where I was using the violet. And I'm gonna go back. It looks really nice with the burnt sienna and the orange.
Yeah, it's very warm and inviting.
So now I'm going to hold my brush at the end so I can get some of that erratic sort of brush stroke that looks so good for foliage. So I haven't done a lot of detail on the house that I can save for later. But I really want to get the feeling of the light hitting the leaves in the tree.
It seems like you have a little thicker consistency for this mineral violet than you did for your blue.
Yeah, that could
Is that
be
correct?
because I wanted to, I'm using stronger color.
Mhm.
I wanted to cover the ultramarine that's already there. And so. And I want to, oops. I want to get some light on the side of this tree. And what I like to do in my painting is find color where you wouldn't necessarily see it. So I'm always looking for an excuse to use purple.
Mhm.
And we have a saying in the Musconetcon watercolor group, when in doubt, purple it out. And I'll credit Evelyn Vogt with that expression. She's always doing that. Okay, so now I'm going to get over here. This crazy foliage. And I don't want to use just the one color. So while this is wet, I'll drop in, go back to the ultramarine and let it flow. And I want to get some more suggestions of branches. It's getting a little drippy. So now I'm going to go back to the ultramarine and use that in a stronger intensity. So I can drop it in and so here it. And also I'll go back to the burnt sienna and drop some more of that in and let it mix with the blue and the purple. I want some of that burnt sienna on this side of the tree. I'm going to have some drips here if I'm not careful. Just this brush is just wet, so I just want to kind of connect with these flooded areas. Drip. dark. So now I'll just bring this down. So I think I'll use the dark on these lower leaves to pull the color down into some of the silhouetted poles and trees that are down here. Like right here. That felt very good.
Mhm.
And this is my street light, and it's silhouetting some of the foliage. So I'll just let that run down. Here's another spot where I can use the paint that's already there. Another telephone pole. Just let that run down. All right, so I'm getting carried away with my tree here. So now I'm going to add a little more dark to the street. I'm going to use a bigger brush for this. And so I just mixed some ultramarine with the mineral violet, and I'm going to some of these shadows down into the street.
Doris, could you show the reference photo?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there are these puddles that I'm trying to preserve. This might be a little.
Do you always paint down on angle?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is I sit down when I work. I'm kind of lazy. And so it would just, I'd get a distorted view. I like this right here. It was-
Yeah, nice little glow.
So there's this light coming from a car, and I want to preserve that. So I'm going to get some blooms probably, but that's okay. So I've got some blooms there, and it's a rainy sort of night, so it's okay.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to do some detail on the house now. And here's the reference again.
Okay.
And I'm going to get out a little pink and my burnt sienna. So I'll go like this, and then we can see what we're doing here. So I don't want to get too fussy. Here comes the mineral violet again. And it mixed with the orange and made a nice warm brown. And those shrubberies in here, so I don't have to worry about being careful around that. Little pink.
What is your pink? Is it permanent rose? What is it?
It's either, yeah, no, it's a quinacridid rose, but they're so similar. I have them right next to each other, so sometimes I just grab one without thinking. So I could have used the pink with the ultramarine for my violet. If I really wanted to stick with the whole limited palette thing.
Mhm.
Now here's an important little hard edge. My flag.
Mhm.
Oh, we're missing a comment from Evelyn. She said that I have to thank somebody, maybe Carl Berger, for saying that in a demo.
Great.
It keeps going round and round.
Yeah, this is, it's like having footnotes.
Yeah.
Carl Berger is he's really amazing.
He is amazing. I've seen him demonstrate a couple times. He's like Johnny Carson, and like 20 minutes of jokes and stories, and in 5 minutes he pulls together a beautiful painting.
I know, it's
Yeah.
just,
I saw him on NG Spotlight. The artist introduced him
yes.
just recently.
I think my husband watched that.
Oh,
Okay, so now I'm doing the roof on the porch. This is the ultramarine with just kind of neutralized with some of the other colors. And I'll just add some shutters. And I'll just suggest the windows, which I carefully drew out ahead of time. So it's okay. It's easier to be loose if you've been precise with your drawing. So I'm going to go back to doing some leaves that I want to have go in front of the house. And this side of the house is in shadow. Except for where that light is. now I'm going to do this, the green. So I hate introducing a whole new color that I haven't used yet. But okay, I'm going to. I'm using a little Windsor green with my cad yellow, just for a little green where there's some light. And then I'm going to mix some of that Windsor green, which I don't usually use, with the ultramarine, and then a little pink. And this is for the these shrubs in front of the house. And that might be a little too dense. I'm going to backtrack here. So here again, I'm holding my brush at the end of the handle. Well, there is a light there, but I kept painting over it, so I'm not going to worry about it. And now, burnt sienna and pink here. Going around the corner of the house.
We're getting on about 5 minutes to 4.
Okay, so why don't I,
You can still paint. I'm just letting you know.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm open to questions if you want to open it up.
If anybody would like to ask a question directly rather than typing it in the chat, you can unmute yourself and ask.
All right. All right, so this is strong right here. I need to make the street stronger. So I would do that. And just make.
All the detail you put on the house and the shrubs looks really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I talked about wanting to keep the foreground darks warmer. And then I went ahead and put some mineral violet back here, but that's okay.
We won't tell.
No, don't tell.
Now, after you get done painting, will you go back and piddle with this and paint and continue much longer on this piece after we're done today?
No, I will take a nap.
Yeah.
No, I'll look at it for a while, and I'll probably wait a week or more, and that's why I say I have a lot of unfinished pieces around.
Mm.
But it'll occur to me what it needs, and it's
Yeah, because you're coming back with a fresh eye with it.
exactly. And also we have an expression, let the fairies work on it, and that prevents us from overworking, and also it changes our attitude. Sometimes when I'm discouraged, if I just wait till the next day, then I can see some hope.
Mhm.
But it's very hard to get perspective when you've just finished painting for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Right.
So,
If you do get it, if you do decide to work some more on it, Doris,
yeah.
and then you get to a point where you feel it is complete at some later point, would we be able to see the side-by-side
Sure.
paintings photographed between what you finished today and then what you finally call finished?
Yes. And because you asked me that, I will work on it sooner than a week from now.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So
okay.
actually, we've had a few people that have been painting along with you at on this demonstration.
Maybe I can see.
So we are wondering if your sky is going to remain like that, or will you darken it up more?
I think I'm going to leave it that way because it is a kind of a foggy night.
Mhm.
And so I think I could rationalize it that way. But I'll look at it. I may decide that it still looks better with a, more like that
Yep.
than with the
No.
sky. But
Okay.
I wanted to show you that sky.
Okay.
And yeah.
Good.
So I will soon I will be making a YouTube video of the recording I have of the Stonehouse Rainy Night. And so people can see a time-lapse demo of that. I could show it now, but it's already 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So we'll be able to maybe put a link on our website to that. Possibly later on when we post this
Yes.
demonstration, maybe we can put that along with it so people can go there as well.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
So
all right. See,
somebody
this tree
said,
should really be.
yeah, you
Okay.
have an amazing way of turning an unremarkable photo into a gorgeous, magical painting.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice of you. And see, now I'm looking at the screen as I'm painting now, because sometimes that's interesting. All right. Well, thank you.
And thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, Doris, and thank you, Garden State from people.
Okay,
Great demonstration.
okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Doris.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Doris.
Yeah, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming today, and looking forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
you soon. And
See you
we have a lot of
soon.
stuff in the pike coming up.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Judy. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.